the show and the background of Jerry Springer himself, just because it's actually pretty interesting. Alright, and I didn't know all these things about Jerry. So, he was born Gerald Springer. He was actually born in England in the year 1944. And he was born in an underground subway station due to the fact that there were bombings going on because it was during World War II. Now this was the Highgate station where he was born, and he grew up for the first 4 years of his life in England. His parents owned a shoe store. They were German Jewish refugees who had escaped Prussia, which is now considered to be Poland. They escaped during the Holocaust, but sadly, 3 other relatives did not escape, and they perished in the Holocaust. So when he was 4, Jerry moved with his parents to New York, specifically Kew Gardens, Queens. He earned a bachelor's degree from Tulane University in political science in 1965, and he got his JD degree from Northwestern University in 1968. A JD is a law degree. He became a political campaign advisor to Robert F. Kennedy. He was elected to the Cincinnati City Council in 1971, but he resigned after admitting to soliciting a prostitute in 1970. So, enough about that. In the year 2000, these guests were invited on the show. This man named Ralph Panitz, who was a German national living in Florida, Sarasota. He applied to be on the show. He wanted to bring on his ex-wife, Nancy Campbell Panitz. She was 52 and he was 42. They had been married in 1997. They had a very tumultuous marriage, lots of arguing, even domestic abuse going on. And they had only been together for 15 months before they divorced. In 1999, so now it's 2000, and he wants to bring her on the show. So, the show's producers, they called her up. They said, "You've been invited to be on this episode." And they led her to believe that her ex-husband wanted to reconcile with her, which was something she wanted. So, she agreed. And the show was based in Chicago at that time. But that wasn't the real reason she was being invited on the show. Now, according to Jerry Springer, before you are approved to be a guest, they tell you 21 possible scenarios that might come up while you're there. Like, you should be aware that you might be surprised with any of these 21 things. And you must agree that you will accept any of those outcomes, which she agreed to. So I suppose what really happened was on the list of what could happen, but I guess she didn't think that was really going to be it. She really thought he invited her on to get back together. Now, why do you need to go on a talk show across the country to get back together? I don't know. So she headed on over to Chicago, and so did Ralph and somebody else. So the show was taped in May of 2000. It did not air until July. So they tape the show and they start out. They have Nancy sitting with Ralph on the couch, I think, on the stage. And then the surprise that they had for her was this woman walks out. It was someone she did know. Okay, this was not an unknown woman. This woman's name was Eleanor. And Nancy knew that Ralph was dating Eleanor, but the surprise was they had gotten married. So it wasn't that she was invited there to get back together with Ralph. No. They wanted to tell her that they had secretly married, and they wanted her to leave them alone. They claimed that she was stalking them. Everywhere they went, she would show up. And they said, "You need to, let us live our lives together. Your relationship with Ralph is done." So, that is not enough for Jerry Springer, right? There has to be more. So, of course, Nancy says, "Well, I've got a surprise for you too, Eleanor. I slept with Ralph last night at the hotel." Are you following this? So Nancy goes to the police and she tells them that he had thrown her out of her own house at knife point and threatened to kill her and her entire family as well. So the judge granted her a restraining order, which was served on Ralph, and he had to vacate the house and leave it for Nancy. Now, the day when he received this restraining order was very unfortunate. It was July 24th, 2000, which was the same day that their Jerry Springer episode was going to air. Weird. So you can imagine he was livid that he's being thrown out of this place, right? And there's a restraining order and everything. So he goes to a bar and he starts drinking and he's watching the Jerry Springer episode at the bar. Not that anything on that episode should really bother him. I mean, seriously. There were no surprises for him there. He knew he slept with Nancy the night before. He knew he was married to Eleanor. No surprises for him. He's the one who wanted to go on the show to begin with. But anyway, I don't know. So he was mad. Most probably just mad about the restraining order is what people think. So apparently he returned to the house after having drank at the bar. And later that night, Nancy was found dead in the house. Blood all around. Bloody footprints all around. She had shoe impressions on her face, and she had been beaten and strangled to death. It was said that she was beaten so much that she was unrecognizable to the police who had seen her earlier that day. So they go looking for Ralph. Well, don't you know he's gone? And so is Eleanor. They went on the run. But ultimately, they were found heading to Canada. They turned themselves in. It's not clear if they turned themselves in after they were found. Does that make sense? I don't know. Or they just got to a certain point and then decided to turn themselves in. But they were heading to Canada, where he was going to go to the German consulate there for help. Would the German consulate have helped him? And if so, why and how? So anyway, he's sent back to Florida, and Eleanor, she ultimately is not charged with anything, okay? But he is charged with the murder. And of course he says he did not do it. And Eleanor says, he didn't do it either. She stands by him. And she does explain that when they went on the Jerry Springer show, they were encouraged to fight. And it was considered that they didn't even do a good job on the show because there wasn't any fighting. They wanted them to engage in more screaming and actually to lunge at each other, which they didn't do. So this was kind of like a boring episode, according to, I guess, what the Jerry Springer show would have thought. So, Ralph got himself a really good lawyer. I don't know how he paid for it. Maybe the lawyer wanted the case because it was in connection with the Jerry Springer show. He thought he would get publicity. I don't know, but this lawyer had previously represented Dr. Kevorkian. So anyway, the lawyer said that actually, they brought on a bunch of, experts who explained explained that Nancy had not died at the hands of Ralph, but rather she had been beaten by someone that we don't know, and had had a heart attack during the beating, and that the prosecutors had planted evidence on the scene. The prosecutors said that there were 18 bloody footprints that matched the shoes that Ralph was wearing. In fact, he was wearing the shoes when they caught up with him. By the way, the case went to court in the year 2002, so it took a little while. They also found his DNA under Nancy's fingernails. And it was noted that there had been many domestic violence reports between this couple in the past, so there was already a history of violence there. Ralph was found guilty of second-degree murder and also of violating an order of protection. And here's what the judge said. The judge criticized the Jerry Springer show for having denied any responsibility, and they said Ralph Panitz, Eleanor Panitz, and Nancy Campbell were brought to Chicago by the Jerry Springer show, then manipulated by producers of that show. Are ratings more important than the dignity of human life? Shame on you, shame on you. I sentence you to the only just sentence in this case. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now, shortly after this, Nancy's son from a previous marriage, an adult son, sued the Jerry Springer show for $25 million, but he ultimately dropped the case. And that is the case. What do you think? I will tell you some of my thoughts. I want to start, of course, by saying my heart goes out to Nancy. It is so tragic that her life ended at the hands of this man in this manner. And of course, my heart goes out to her family and friends. Now, I want to talk about the Jerry Springer show. Are they responsible for this murder? Now, we may all have different opinions, and that is fine, okay? But this is my opinion, and you can share your opinion, and I will respect it. I do not blame the Jerry Springer show. I am not saying I think it is a good show. I don't like anything about it. I did not enjoy watching it. I wasn't a viewer of the show. I knew of it, but it wasn't something I would watch. If you watched it, I'm not judging you. That's fine. A lot of people enjoyed that show. But anyway, what did they have to do with it? Seriously. If the story was different, if Nancy left the stage and then she committed the crime, then yes, okay, that I would say, wow, that's the Jerry Springer show's fault. They brought this woman out here to embarrass her. But that is not what happened. Ralph, who wasn't embarrassed on the show, he's the one who wanted to be on the show. He's the one who went ahead and did this crime. And clearly it was because of the fact that he was being thrown out of his house. That's what it was. It's a coincidence that it was the same was special about him? Tell me, because I missed it. It doesn't sound like he was rich, okay? And so it wasn't money. Was he so charming? Was he so wonderful? I doubt it. He was going from one to the other, back and forth and back and forth. Why did either of them want him? I know it happens though, you know, but it's just super unfortunate that either of them stayed with him. Especially Nancy for what wound up happening to her. I'm not blaming her. Trust me. I am not blaming her. She is the victim. Okay. But after she went on this show and he humiliated her, can you imagine if you went to that show and someone did to her, did to you what was done to her, and everyone in the audience was calling you old and fat? And it was all because of this man inviting you on to trick you like this. For what reason? And then you want to get back together with him and you get a house with him. Okay, like I said, I'm not blaming her. These things happen. People make bad choices. That's just unfortunate. Like, very unfortunate. And do you think Eleanor had anything to do with it? Do you think she wanted Nancy to be killed? I really don't know. I mean, she did go on the run with him. So, I don't know if she was involved or she accepted it as happening anyway. She's like, oh, you killed her, alright, well, that's fine, let's go on the run. Maybe she wasn't in on it, but she really didn't mind that it happened. I mean, there's no way she could believe that he didn't do it. Let's talk for a minute about the career of Jerry Springer, separate from this crime. It sounds like he was having a very successful career as it was before the Jerry Springer show turned into a tabloid show. And he was probably making pretty nice money, right? If you were him, would you have agreed to be the host of a trashy tabloid show which encouraged people to fight and air their dirty laundry on national TV? Would you want to be known as that guy who led the show? Or would you accept a little bit less money and continue on as a serious journalist? What do you think? I mean, what do we all think of him now? Do we think most of us don't know he ever had any kind of respectable life before the Jerry Springer show? We